Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition, many editions of the Democratic View. I'm here today with a gentleman that I am meeting for the first time, as a matter of fact, a complete stranger who has formed a group in our Springs, which is where I live also, and we're going to find out all about him. His name is Aaron Warkov. Did I get that right?
You got that right.
And your group is called?
Springs Citizens for Civility.
I love that name.
Yeah, I started it because I was kind of a frequent user of the Neighbor app that everybody told me when I moved to Springs was a good resource for finding out what was going on in the community. And so I joined that, and I kind of just watched and listened to what was going on. And over a period of time, I saw that there were a lot of people kind of, yelling at the sky about all their, complaints and their issues and things that I don't think
Yes.
people really felt heard.
Yes.
So I like to let people yell at the sky like everybody else. It's all, it's fun. It's like cathartic, and you can get out a lot of stress and tension, but whether it's going to do any good in the end or be noticed is another thing. So I kind of kept hearing similar themes, similar complaints, and I'll touch on those, what the general complaints were. But I felt like I'm somebody who's not afraid to kind of jump in with both feet and start something new potentially, or help create some groundswell around like all these issues that Springs felt like they were having. And so I started my own little group, Citizens for Civility, on the Neighborhood app. And within, I don't say weeks or something like that, all of a sudden there were 70 or 80 people that had joined. And it was like, so there was obviously a need to be heard and to kind of organize. And so that's what I did. I just jumped in. I didn't have any special plan other than just trying to kind of parrot back what I felt like everybody was commonly saying. And it's not about me at all. It was just more like, can I just help reflect back what the community is saying and and sort of synthesize it and get down to what I felt were like some of the core issues that people felt like weren't being addressed there. So that's what I started to do. And I started to post things and ask questions. And then it kind of got to the point where it was like, oh, we should meet. So naturally, COVID's going on still. So this really just started last year. And so we needed to meet outside. And by the time we were meeting, I think, and everything got going, it was closer to fall. So we had some, icy meetings over in Maidstone Park under the band shell there. Kind of windy and icy.
I know it well.
Yeah, but a lot of people showed up. I think we would get, anywhere from, 15 to 20, 25 people. There were people who showed up from the town board, which I felt like, wow, somebody's listening. This is really great. If a board member shows up to a meeting about a group, I guess they see that there are people who are actually joining, then we are starting to accomplish what it was that I set up to do, which was to get membership, to get eyes and ears, and to hopefully get voices behind these issues and bring them to the board and bring them to the press or whoever needed to hear about potential things that weren't really being addressed. And that started to happen. And we ended up with a seat at the table because of that. And it's still growing, and it's still one of those things where I'm only one guy. I don't pretend to be like the leader of this. I'm not seeking any political thing or anything. My thing is just trying to engage people and ask them what it is that's important to them, and maybe ask even individuals within the group if there's issues that they really want to focus on that are really important to them. Can they lead that, right? Can they take that on and be the person that really champions that and then reports back, and we just sort of work together as a community, right? And I think that's really the main thing, is to try to align the community.
Okay, I agree with all of what you've said so far, but I'd like to know a little bit about you before
Okay.
I go on. So
right.
tell me where you were born, raised, or what your education is, and
All right. Let's see. I got very
how you got into this.
I got a very colorful past. Um, I was born in San Francisco, California,
Oh,
son of two artists who went to the San Francisco Art Institute. So, you know, not a very well-to-do family, but, you know, creative family. My father was Canadian from Winnipeg. My mother was from Fancy Prairie, Illinois. That's one of those places when you're driving along the freeway, if you sneeze, you went past it. So it was a really small place. And we lived out in California for some years. Ended up moving to the Midwest when my father graduated, and he got a job teaching at the University of Minnesota in the art department. So I was, you know, an art school family kid, and got to drop in my father at the University of Minnesota a lot. And I kind of grew up in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Basically, I can still consider that to be my base hometown. Even though I was 9 when we moved there, that was where I was all the way through high school.
uh-huh.
After that, I ended up with opportunity to come to New York for a summer in the early '80s. I was a model for a while, so I got sort of recruited to come out to New York and be with a startup agency. And I spent the summer out here, and I really liked New York a lot. So I went back to Minnesota after that. Basically, I was just out of high school. So then I ended up with an opportunity to go over to Europe and do the same thing. So I ended up in Europe for about 2.5, 3 years, traveling and working and absorbing everything that I hadn't had as, you know, a kid grew up in Minnesota. You know, I hadn't traveled all that much except in the States.
Right.
So that broadened my worldview, got me to understand all cultures and food and fashion and just politics, everything. And that was amazing. And I ended up back in New York after that and started realizing like that from the fashion background that I really wanted to be on the other side. And I picked up a camera while I was over in Europe working and started shooting other models and people. And I ended up becoming a decent photographer while I was over there. And when I moved back to New York, that's what I pursued. So I started doing photography as my full-time pursuit. And I ended up just building a career. Never went to school for it, but I think I was always in school for being creative. And my father was a photographer and taught photography at the university. So I was always around the creative process. And so I naturally sort of slid into that and grew a business as an advertising photographer for
Oh,
30 years.
wow.
Yeah. So that was between New York, and then went back to Minnesota for a while with my family when my kids were young, and then ended up back on the East Coast again as they got older. So I've been all over the place, really. I'm like,
There's nothing wrong
I'm
with
not
being
an
all
army
over the
brat, but
place.
I'm close to just being all over the place all the time. So I have a very broad view of communities and what's important. I guess when I land somewhere, I like to make it a place that I really am happy at that I live, and hopefully help other people be happier too.
So is Springs your home
Yeah,
for a while or
yeah.
for longer?
Well, I moved over from Springs. We were in Sagaponic. My girlfriend had a place out there, and she's a longtime Hamptons person. And her mother, she's been coming out here with her mother since she was a teenager, and had a place in Watermill. And she ended up building a house in Sagaponic years and years ago. And so that was more of my introduction to coming out to Hamptons on a regular basis. And then we decided that we really loved the peace and sort of the diversity of Springs, and you know it's full of artists and
Yes.
builders and firemen and fishermen and you know just creative people, and it just felt like a community where you just bump into people and you always have really interesting conversations. You know, I feel like it's a little less gated and a little more open and a little bit
Yes.
more like people are just open to meeting new people, right? And so that's kind of what we were missing where we were, and we decided to come over here and we bought a house over in Springs and haven't looked back and love it.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
And so you have decided to be a person to, I'm going to say, help Springs?
Yeah, one of many. I since starting this, I also am part of the Spring CAC, and so I drop in on all those meetings, and I'm try to stay aware of everything that's going on, and just kind of immerse myself in it, and talk with um, you know people around. It's just keep an ear open for what's going on.
So where do you think we need the most focus?
Well, it's it's a long list if you want to go through everything, but I think what we try to do is distill it down to a few things that maybe we could try to tackle first and see if we could make some dent in it.
Okay.
And those were people were really worried about the speeding. There's a lot of speeding. The roads are very curvy. There's no shoulders. There are kids, bicyclists, deer. There's a lot of just general hazards in Springs. It's not
Especially on 3 Mile Harbor.
3 Mile Harbor, Acabonic. I mean, there's sections where it's curvy. You don't know what's coming around the corner. And unfortunately, I think a local man who lived on Neck Path died on Acabonic just last week on a motorcycle, which is
Yes.
sad to hear. But it's dangerous, and people do travel at a very high rate of speed. I mean, I know that's Old Stone Highway is where I live, but we call it Old Stone Freeway at times because there are times when you just hear somebody stopping at an intersection and then just revving. You could tell sports car, truck, whatever. They don't discriminate. They just pick up speed at a high rate. They've got somewhere to be and they want to get there fast. So we're trying to shine a light on the speeding issue and trying to get people just to slow down a little bit, just to
Yeah,
just
I
to
know exactly what
take a
you're talking
breath.
about because obviously if I'm in the town of East Hampton, the village, and I want to go to my home in Clearwater Beach,
Yeah,
I have two choices. I can go Springs Fireplace or I can go 3 Mile Harbor. I
right.
go 3 Mile Harbor
Yeah,
because I know 3 Mile Harbor is curvy and
yeah,
people can't drive that fast.
right, right.
They have to. If you go Springs Fireplace, whoa, they really whiz right by you.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of impatientness kind of going on out here that if everybody would basically just do a test, okay? Do a test, which is set your cruise control on one of these roads that you're used to driving on, right? Just set your cruise control. Look, if you can't do 30, set it for 35, okay? Um, just test it out. Like, see what it's like. See that you really basically arrive by the time you're going to head from, let's say, Springs into East Hampton. You arrive pretty much at the same time. You're going to run into traffic by the time you get in there. It's going to slow you down at some of the lights or some of the classic kind of stop sign intersection areas. And you're going to realize like that your blood pressure goes way down, that it wasn't really worth speeding, that it really just didn't matter that you're going 45 and a 30. Like you just don't need, and I'm being kind of nice when I say 45. There are people that I definitely know are going 60 and 30s,
Oh,
and it's so that was one of the issues. Okay, the other ones that were common cries were people just throwing trash out their windows. I mean, I know that when I walk up my road, I mean, I need a plastic bag, and I just,
yes,
100 yards up and down the road on both sides. I've
yes.
filled it with beer bottles and chip bags and, all sorts of things.
Yep.
Yeah, and
And you know what? I still is. I mean, even when I drove here today,
yeah,
I count the different
I
places
know,
where I see litter.
I
And
know.
it's like, I don't understand it.
Yeah,
Why do you have to throw it out your window?
and I would say this: if it's a person from the neighborhood is doing that, shame on you. This is your neighborhood. You should really just take care of your stuff, bring it home, and throw it in the trash can. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean? If you're trying to hide the beer bottles from your domestic partner or your partner, I can't help you there, but maybe, figure out a way not to throw it out the window, like in everybody's front yard. That would be an amazing start. There's also things that happen seasonally. Like there's a groundswell, obviously, we know in the summertime. Everything is full. Year-round residents, renters, I mean, it swells, right? So there are places like the beach parking lots where the cans are overflowing and then the trash is blowing. And, it's a sad situation to see that people are, willing to just let trash blow around and kind of contaminate the beaches and just the view and everything. It's so beautiful out here. So trash was another one. And then I would say the other one was just sort of safety issues that dealt with, some of it had dealt with speeding. Some of it was that they felt like there were areas of excessive speed that needed to be tamped down, with like instead of 40, drop it down to 30. There are people who would really love a lot of the speeds to be even dropped down, in the 20s through some neighborhoods, which I would love to see happen. But as I go through the process, sometimes the town has the call, sometimes the state has the call. They're all different roads controlled by different people with their own limits of how low the speeds can be. So we've tried wherever possible to get them to change anything down to the lowest possible speed, because people are still going to go over it. But at least if you can start at a base that's sort of a little saner for a neighborhood that's filled with kids and bicyclists and hikers and deer and just all these things that are natural hazards, if you can at least tamp down that base speed and people still want to go over it, at least they're not at a crazy rate of speed, right? So that was something. And there was also areas where, again, no shoulder to the road, so we wanted to see if we could get some signage just warning, like blind curve, even signs suggesting that they slow down to a speed limit that would be much safer. May not be the actual posted one, but one suggesting that this is an area where it would be great to tamp it down a little bit and give yourself and everybody else a good fighting chance if you come across something that was unexpected. So blind curves, things like that, potholes, things that just have gotten kind of out of control and overlooked. So we started bringing those up, and we brought them to board meetings and to representatives for the Springs. And, a lot of those things really got some attention. So it was really good. I mean, all of a sudden I noticed that the police were moving their squad cars around to places I hadn't seen them before. We're doing, some speed traps here and there. And that kind of randomness and that kind of attention to not sitting in the exact same place, because it's not really necessarily about how many tickets you write. It's about how many people come across you and are like, I've never seen him there before. Like, I now have to sort of think about everywhere I drive that there's a randomness to it, and that I could end up with a big ticket or a speeding ticket. Or if you happen to be one of the people that drinks and drives, you can end up with worse. So we encouraged them to do that, and that was actually something they started to do. And Mike Sarlo, the chief of police, is he's an amazingly attentive guy.
Yes, he is.
And you know what? I do not envy what these guys have to do with the COVID that happened, the budgets that they had to deal with, and the officers they were down to try to maintain a force that could actually handle this area. They were working to me with a very small force on they were hobbled, and they needed the communities to have their back, right? So I'm very pro anybody who is trying hard to help the community, and I don't discriminate about any of that stuff, and I don't generalize. So if somebody's doing the right thing and they're putting their best foot forward, I see it, and I'm compassionate about, what they have to work with and what they can do.
Every once in a while, I see, one of the trucks that are litter control, and they're picking up the litter, and I always applaud them.
Yeah,
I stop,
roll down the window and say
"Hey,
thank you. Yeah, right. Even if they're getting paid, thank you for doing this, because it's really amazing. And I have seen more of that too. I have to say, in my area and some areas that we called out, all of a sudden the trash patrol guys are out there and they're walking up and down, and the roads are starting to look better and nicer. And if this town can keep doing that, and if people can start realizing that it really does have an effect on everybody else, if you're just throwing things willy-nilly out the window, then I think bringing that attention hopefully has a little, ripple effect and starts to tamp down some of those actions, and especially the speeding things too.
So, do you have any particular place where you and your people meet?
Well, during COVID, it was Zoom. Before that, I think I touched on that. We would meet over at Maidstone Park because Maidstone Park was having issues too with people at night kind of racing in there or doing burnouts and flying through that should be like a 15-mile-an-hour area. But they were asking if we could put speed bumps in, if there was things that we could do to control the flow in there for kids and just keep the speed down. So I decided, because there was another person who had this Maidstone speed bump kind of group going on, that would be a great place to meet.
Yeah,
Not only is it beautiful and a place everybody can find, there's plenty of parking,
yeah,
but I thought let's go to the place, one of the places that that we were all talking about and the issue about it and let people physically see it. So we did that for a few meetings. We thought about taking it indoors, but it just was, the COVID thing was just too
yeah.
risky.
It was
We just
very
couldn't get,
inhibiting.
so that put a little kind of tamped down everything for the winter a bit this last winter. But Ashwag Hall was a place that seems will and offered to make time for our group to meet there. So if everything seems good going into spring or summer and nothing rears its head again, then maybe we can try to do some in-person meetings because I think it's really great to meet your neighbors.
Oh, there's nothing better than
Yeah.
meeting in person. The exchange that goes on between people back and forth is better than I mean, I will do Zoom when we have to, but
Sure.
that action of people being together
Yeah.
and sharing ideas, there's nothing like it,
I think it's true.
And Ashwan Hall, of course, is a really great place to be.
Center community space for the Springs.
Uh-huh.
It kind of caters to every need there. I do art too. I did an art show there with two other artists in Ashwag, and so that was an amazing place to do that and hold it there. And we could have probably found other spaces, maybe in East Hampton or Southampton or something. But I was like, this is where de Kooning, this is where Pollock and all these people
That's
hung
right.
out and did their thing. And
That's
like,
right.
there's no reason why an art show shouldn't be super successful at Ashwag and be taken seriously and attract people. So we actually had some good success with that show and promoted it. And that to me is, again, shining light back on Springs, showing the amazing community that's here, and being a big promoter. Yeah, go Springs.
Yeah, there's a little clip every once in a while that the LTV even shows on about Jackson Pollock, and it's really amazing. It really is amazing.
Yeah.
And I come from a family of artists too, so I know it's just. And I figured out, they used to talk about what attracted the artists to come here, which is the light.
Yeah.
And that light, boy, it is incredible.
Yeah, there's some places in Springs you go out on Louse Point or Girard Drive, and there's just these little spots where you stop and you're like,
Wow.
this is really one of the most beautiful places on earth. And it's
True.
And I don't think it's ever the same. Every time you go, it'll be a
Yeah.
different tide, or the sky will be a different color, or it'll be really windy and wavy, or it'll be glassy smooth and everything's reflecting in it. And I guess because I'm a photographer too, I see the world that way, and I think I'm just taking pictures with my eyes all the time as well.
Yeah, no, I drive up 3 Mile Harbors, and sometimes I'll look to my left and see the sky, and I have to stop and go down Flaggy Hole and look at the water and the sky, and it just takes your breath away.
It's amazing. Yeah.
It really is incredible, and I have lived all over this country, so I really do.
Some of
I
the
mean, I've
most
lived in
amazing-
places like West Virginia.
Yeah. Most
you
amazing
know.
bays and beaches anywhere in the world. I mean, that's why the world comes to the Hamptons.
That's right.
Some come here a lot faster and come in and out a lot more than the rest of us, but there's a huge draw here because you have everything from equestrian to agriculture to being in the deep woods to being in an open, pristine, endless beach.
So, what are your plans for the future?
Stay here. Hopefully, as my college-age kids get older, they want to come out here more too and bring friends and create a good center for my family and friends, and you get to know more people in the community, grow my following for my art and photography, as well as my real estate. That I'm a real estate agent out here too. So just kind of grow everything and just try to do really good work. Try to be really proactive and positive and creative, and support the community that supports me.
Well, that sounds like a great goal. I mean,
That's it.
I wish everybody had that kind of a goal. We'd be in a much better position than we
Oh,
are.
and I also surf, so pray for waves. Have some fish tacos and beer, and I love
Don't
summer.
worry,
I
there'll
love
be
summer.
waves. There'll always be waves.
Yeah, it's true.
Anyway, it was great to have gotten a chance to know you,
You too, Phyllis.
and we will be looking forward to following the things that you do, and hopefully you will continue to lead this community.
Well, I hope so, and I need the community to all pitch in too. So definitely reach out. Citizensforcivility.com, spelled out the long way. Don't know why we did that, but we did that. Also on the neighbor app, which is a really good place to find out a lot of things about your particular neighborhoods. We have a group on there too. So
Tell us the name of the group again, so I want people to really know.
Citizensforcivility.com.
Okay, folks, you got that?
Yeah.
That's where you have to go online and look at that one. And you have to even submit your name so that we have more names of people.
Yeah, there's a thing on there too where you can sign up, and it just will get you in the loop with any emails we do. You can. It's two-way street. Please communicate if you have anything you want to share. You have something you want to write that maybe would be really meaningful to post or to discuss or to get out there. We're happy to do that for you and help facilitate communication. So we welcome people to.
Aaron, it is great to have had this opportunity to talk to you
You too,
and
Phyllis.
meet a new leader.
I
We
don't know
need
about that.
leaders, well, people have to
Well.
have people to guide them and lead them along the way.
That's-
Thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it.
I appreciate